The elders of the fjord villages say the world was once as steady as a sealskin drum, its rhythm carried by the tides and the breathing of the sky. Daylight followed night like footsteps in fresh snow, and the moon waxed and waned with a calm precision that soothed fishermen and soothed the caribou herds alike. Such balance, they insist, was maintained by the reunite, the moon-carving spirits invisible to all but newborns and the dying. In hidden chambers beneath the lunar crust, the reunite swung chisels of glimmerstone, shaving silver from the rim at each appointed hour, then tempering the glow again so the circle might regrow. Their work etched the phases a careful diminishment and replenishment that marked the months like beads on a necklace. Yet any craft that endures millennia becomes brittle at its edges. And so, as the story drifts down the generations, there came an evening when the chiseling rang false. A crack spidered across the moon's lower bow with a report that thundered through every hollow bone on earth. Instead of a measured wane, the bright coin shattered into a hooked crescent, flakes of moondust spiraling over the night like startled terns. From that instant, the world fell into an in-between light, perpetual twilight that was neither dawn nor dusk, a dimness that grew stale. Crops faltered, hunting paths knotted into confusion, and a dread lethargy chilled hearts faster than the polar wind. Folklore can blame many things. Some claim a novice reunite swung too eagerly. Others whisper that a mortal insult, children ridiculing the moon's slow riddle, dampened spirit hands. Whatever the cause, the fracture remained, and the chisels lay silent. With the rhythm broken, oceans lost the certainty of their tides, and people lost the certainty of their waking. Among those humbled by the half-light was Sukak, once the most accomplished ice harvester of Quarrelling Point. His livelihood had been cutting cathedral-sized slabs from the summer flows, guiding them through channels with sealskin sails so the southern traders might have clear water for their luxury houses. His reputation rested not merely on strength, but on the gentleness with which he touched ice. A gentleness born of listening, ear pressed to blue walls, to feel ancient songs trapped inside. But after the shattering of the moon, the sea forgot how to sleep, and tides refused to cradle ice as before. A single misjudged swell capsized Sukap's convoy, sinking a year's fortunes. In despair, the traders accused him of negligence and, ashamed, he accepted exile rather than watch neighbors squabble over ruined contracts. He shouldered a pack of tools, saws, wedges, a wind lantern, and travelled inland over the lightless cap, determined to vanish like breath into the night. These, though day meant nothing then, blurred past in slate grey. All stars remained visible, yet their brilliance felt tarnished, as though they strained to shine through soot. Hunger pressed Sukak toward a lone glow weaving among rocky bluffs. The hearth of Anana, an octogenarian word-keeper, living in a driftwood hut where legend, smoke, and dried char filled each nook. Anana fed him a stew of moss and hair, and listened as he spilled shame and doubt. When he finished, she poked the embers with a bone tine and fixed eyes milky with cataracts upon him. "Your craft is ice," she rasped, "and ice is water sleeping. The moon guides sleep. If the dreamer is wounded, will not the sleeper toss and break the bed?" Sukak bowed, accepting the rebuke as wisdom. "There is a way to mend that wound," Anana continued. She rummaged in a box and produced a chip of moonstone no broader than a thumbnail, yet bright enough to frost the rafters. So this fell the night of the shattering. Carry it back upward. The reunite cannot heal the crescent until someone stitches the fissure with matter born of both earth and moon. "How shall I rise?" Sukak asked, half mocking, half yearning. "I have no wings, and no canoe can cut air." Anana smiled, revealing gums the colour of rusty iron. "Aurora is a river when sung to correctly. Fetch me an echo of your heart, and I shall weave you a line." An echo of the heart Sukak puzzled through the phrase while he repacked supplies. Finally, he knelt, drew from his pouch a piece of singing ice he'd saved from his first harvesting season. When tapped, the shard pulsed with tones like whales greeting dawn. It was the material proof of why he had fallen in love with frozen water in the first place. Inanna's gnarled fingers braided that shard with sinews of caribou and strands of her own grey hair until a thin whip of translucent cord emerged. She whispered into it, words lost now to the living, and handed him the coil. "Cast this into the northern lights at their peak. The river will lift you." Sukak thanked her and set forth toward the open plateau where auroras danced most fervently. During travel, he noticed creatures restless in the half-glow. Owls hooting at wrong hours, fox kits gamboling with confusion. He felt, more than saw, the weight of a world stalled in mid-breath. Each step made his mission less about personal redemption and more about mercy for all breathing things. On the 13th dusk, counting by meals, not by suns, the sky unfurled green and violet curtains thick as whale skin. Sukak uncoiled the cord and flung its hook of moonstone into the shimmering torrent. Wind roared upward. The cord snapped taut, and he was yanked off the tundra so quickly he thought his soul had already separated. Yet he clung, eyes watering, as the Aurora's river wrapped him in cold fire. There was no boundary. One moment he felt the bite of worldly air, the next he was breaching cloud seam. And then silence deepened until even his heartbeat seemed an impostor. Ahead hung the moon closer than any mortal should witness. Its broken crescent gaped like the grin of a toothless grandmother, crumbs of light scattering into orbit. An unseen force set him gently upon ashen regolith. Gravity remained, lighter than Earth's, but persuasive enough. The air was non-existent, but the braided cord shimmered around him, encasing him in a bubble of breath. Inanna's design had considered everything. With cautious strides, he followed faint hammer clangs echoing along dusted ridges. Soon he reached a chasm, glowing internally like the throat of a forge. Within, the Narkiranet laboured, or attempted to. Their forms were silhouettes edged in silver, each neither male nor female, their limbs long as memories, their faces masked with half-circle visors that reflected endless starfields. They wielded chisels and mallets, the colour of pewter dawn, but the tools were cracked, and the spirit's posture sagged. Chips they struck fell lifeless, no ringing follow, only a dull clack, as if the lunar crust had gone hollow. Though they possessed no mouths, the Narkiran emitted a harmonized thought that reverberated through Sukak's skull. "Mortal ice singer, why trespass where light is forged?" He bowed deeply, summoning courage. "I come to mend the crescent. The dusk may end below." The spirits paused. Even their shuddering chisels stilled. A breeze of moondust whirled, spelling symbols that translated themselves in his mind. Humans once danced fires at full moon, offered tallow and song. Their gratitude kept our tools sharp. Now prayers have thinned, belief has cooled. Our forge quenched before the cycle finished. Touch the wound if you must taste sorrow. Sukak walked to the rim where the shattered edge drooped outward, like a broken jaw. The fissure radiated coldness of such purity it reminded him of freshly carved glacier walls. Ice that had never met sunlight, he understood then. The moon's own wound was of kin to his beloved medium. From his satchel he removed saw and wedge fashioned for Earth's frozen waters. Would they bite stone of the sky? He tried. The saw screeched futilely. Again the harmonized whisper, "Your steel drinks rivers, not starlight." He recalled the shard of singing ice at the cord's tip. Maybe terrestrial ice blended with lunar ledge could knit the gap. He asked the Narkiranet's permission. They parted without speech, granting access to a shadowed grotto deeper inside. The floor was slick with translucent plates, glassy and blue, utterly impossible on an airless world. Yet here, water had condensed from comet tails and secret geysers, then frozen in everlasting night. Heart ice, Legends called it older than life itself. He knelt, paying respects as one would before a king, and selected a piece shaped by natural fracture to resemble a slender tusk. He felt songs thrumming inside, low and expectant. The challenge now lay in forging a brace that blended this heart ice, his shard, and stray moonstone chips he collected along the fracture. His earthly fire was absent. No flames in vacuumy, yet he sensed the aurora chord still pulsing with energy. Perhaps the river's magnetism could weld by resonance. He anchored tools, arranged materials, and plucked the auroral filament like a harp string. Vibrations cascaded through the cavern, stirring buried luminosity in stone and ice alike. Narkirnit gathered around, their visors brightening, adding their own harmony tones reminiscent of glass bells struck by snowfall. The combined symphony heated without heat. Crystals softened, metals flowed like singing mercury. Within that sound forge, Sukak shaped a curved splint arching exactly along the missing arc of the moon. Before the forge song dissipated, he and two spirits lifted the brace, but a guardian awaited. Legend had scarcely mentioned it. Ukaluna, the star wolverine, whose constellation had long glimmered near Polaris. During normal cycles, Ukaluna prowled only the sky, yet now, the broken crescent's imbalance had wrenched the beast into corporeal defense. Its claws quilted from nebulae, its claws obsidian meteorites. It leapt atop the fracture with a howl that rippled cosmic dust into whirlpools. Sukak braced the newly formed mend against his chest, squaring shoulders. Exile had taught him humility. Harvesting had taught him when to stand firm. He remembered coastal bears he'd steered away by singing low over the ice, till vibrations unsettled their paws. Perhaps song could again prevail. He struck the brace with his knuckle. The heart ice resonated, pulling in echoes from his first love of ice, Anana's whispers, even the mallets of the Narkirnit. The cord rippled outward, soft yet tenacious. Ukaluna paused mid-snarl, ears twitching. The sound tangled its cosmic fur, flattening the bristle of its rage. Sukat maintained the rhythm, composing a lullaby older than mother tongue's dispulse and longing. The wolverine's eyes, once storms, dimmed into distant lanterns. It crouched, confused, then backed away into a coil of darkness that peeled off the moon and dissolved among stars. Balance, momentarily, favored creation over claw. The Narkirnit seized the instant. They slid the brace into place, fitting its curvature against splintered edges. Sukak hammered lightly with a chisel handed to him by the eldest spirits, half-etched in constellations unseen from Earth's perspective. Each tap released sparks of turquoise frost that sealed the scene flush. When the final blow rang true, a vibration surged through the entire lunar body. Dust leapt. Craters hummed like chorus. Light burst forth. Not glare, but a steady bloom reminiscent of whale oil lanterns, multiplied 1,000-fold, pushing shadow outward until it bled off the rim of space. The crescent rounded, edges smoothing until the moon stood fuller than it had in years. Already, rotation tugged the Terminator across its face as it should. The Nahokirnit surrounded Sukak. Cycle restored. Yet memory of fracture persists. It will require tending. Will mortals remember to honor? I will remind them, he pledged, though he wondered whether a single ice harvester's influence could ripple far. But vows made on the moon's anvil are not easily broken. The spirits opened a shaft of green fire, the backward flow of aurora. Sukak stepped in, clutching only his saw and a fresh chip of lunar silver they gifted him, a token for storytellers. Down he fell, or rose, for directions lose meaning in such passages, until boots squelched into crusted snow not far from Anana's hut. The sky above him glittered with a moon now 3/4 pregnant, shedding enough light to paint ridgelines blue and carve ebony shadows behind every rock. More crucial, beyond the horizon glimmered a pale stripe. Sunrise, gentle yet certain. He hurried toward the nearest settlement. Along the way he passed rivers, once sluggish from cold, They now murmured with currents that knew exactly where they were headed. Seals lolled on ice floes that lifted and lowered in reassuring cycles. Even the wind had direction in its whistle again. At Quarglug Point, surprised faces met him. The traders who had exiled him stirred from cabins, rubbing eyes unused to gradients of morning. They saw first the returning light, then the man carrying moonbright metal. Murmurs spread faster than campfire sparks. Children pointed at the sky's growing glow. Elders formed half circles, uncertain whether to scold or to worship. Sukak laid the token on a communal rock altar. "Give thanks," he told them simply. The Nut Kirin listened. No elaborate sermon followed. Instead, he struck the moon chip with his saw. A crystalline note rang out across the waterfront. On instinct, the townspeople echoed it, with voices, with clapped mittens, with tin cups knocked together, until the harbour sang. Above, the moon seemed to tilt in acknowledgement, a glimmer racing along its rail. In days that followed, full daylight returned, and with it the reliable veil of night. Crops of sea kale revived, sled dogs regained energy, constellations regained mystery. People learned new rituals. On each waxing gibbous evening, they placed small mirrors on windowsills to catch moonlight and tilt it back upward, a polite nod to the artisans chiselling overhead. Suka, no longer exiled, might have resumed harvesting. Yet he chose a different task. He travelled village to village, telling the tale. Each telling varied. Some he emphasised the wolverine, sometimes the boom of the fracture, other times Anansa's braiding. But always he ended with a simple invitation. When you see the silver boat cross the sky, remember the hands that steer it. Sing, drum, or breathe a prayer, and the cycle will go on. Years passed. The climate of faith waxed and waned like the orb itself. For humans remain inconstant, but whenever communities grew lax and skipped offerings, lights in the north sharpened to a spear-like clarity, a reminder of the Aurora River, and someone inevitably recalled Sukak's story, retrieving a drum or lighting a wick. As for Sukak, legend claims he lived long, his beard turning as white as Berg's, eyes still catching glints of hidden colour in newborn ice. Some evenings, fishermen swore they saw him walking beyond the headland, humming tones that curled into the wind and up toward the stars, as though still tuning the moon's heartbeat. And on nights when the crescent looked especially hole-etched just right, neither too thin nor too fat, old-timers smiled and said the Nakwernit must be pleased, for their mortal apprentice was keeping faithful watch.